The day she arrived at my gate, I was hauling 50-pound feed bags in 100-degree heat, my boots caked in mud, thinking about nothing except whether I could stretch another month on my failing operation before the bank came calling. I had no idea that before the sun set again, I'd be signing a marriage certificate with a woman I'd never met, or that the words, "I need a husband by tomorrow," would be the beginning of a lie so dangerous it would either save everything I had left or bury me and my daughter along with it. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel, and it proves that powerful stories resonate everywhere. The morning after our wedding, I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop. There were dozens of messages and missed calls from people I hadn't talked to in years. When I finally looked at the screen, I saw news alerts flooding with the same headline: Billionaire CEO Linda Graham missing, kidnapping suspected. I jumped out of bed and ran to Emma's room where Linda was staying. She was already awake, sitting on the bed fully dressed, looking at her phone with a calm expression that didn't match the panic I was feeling. When I burst through the door demanding answers, she told me to sit down because she needed to explain what was really going on. Linda's full story came out then. She was the CEO of Graham Industries, a tech company worth approximately $8 billion. 3 days before she showed up at my farm, someone had tried to kill her. They had run her car off a highway outside the city, and she had barely escaped with her life. The car was found abandoned, which is why the news was reporting her as missing. She explained that she hadn't actually been kidnapped by anyone. She had staged her own disappearance because she needed time to figure out who was trying to kill her and why. The marriage to me served a specific purpose. It made me her legal next of kin. If something happened to her now, I would inherit control of her entire company. That meant whoever wanted her dead would have to deal with me first, which complicated their plans considerably. I was angry and terrified. She had turned me into an accomplice in what looked like a kidnapping without fully explaining the situation beforehand. I told her that I could go to prison for this, that they could take my daughter Emma away from me. But Linda insisted that wouldn't happen because we had a believable cover story. According to our official story, Linda and I had met online several months ago. We had been dating long distance and fell in love. We decided to get married quietly because Linda wanted privacy away from the media attention that always followed her. I had no idea about the attempt on her life because she hadn't told me about it. As far as I knew, she was just my new wife coming to stay at the farm for some peace and quiet. Linda told me she believed the person behind the murder attempt was Silas Thorne, who was the acting chief operating officer of her company. He had been pushing for more control and power within Graham Industries for years. She suspected he wanted her dead so he could take over as CEO, but she needed solid proof before she could make any accusations against him. I asked her how long she planned to stay hidden at my farm. She said she didn't know exactly, maybe a few days, possibly up to a week. She had people she trusted who were gathering evidence against Silas. Once she had everything she needed, she could come out of hiding and expose him. The problem was what would happen when people came looking for her. Linda explained that when they found her, I needed to tell them the truth about our marriage. I wasn't holding her captive. She was here by choice as my wife. It wasn't illegal for a married woman to stay at her husband's farm, even if people thought it looked suspicious. That afternoon, the news coverage became overwhelming. Every television channel was talking about Linda's disappearance. They showed footage of her abandoned car and interviewed her business associates. I watched as Silas Thorne appeared on camera, looking appropriately worried and concerned. He announced a $1 million reward for any information that would lead to Linda's safe return. He looked like a caring colleague who just wanted his boss back safely. Linda stood next to me watching Silas on TV and told me he was good at playing the role. She said he had probably been planning this for months, making sure that when the time came, he would look completely innocent. His concerned performance on camera was all part of his plan. I asked if she had any actual proof that Silas was behind the murder attempt. She said she had suspicions and circumstantial evidence. There were financial records in the company that didn't add up properly. She had testimony from employees who said they had seen Silas's men following her in the days before her car was run off the road. But she needed something more concrete, something that would hold up if she accused him publicly. Later that day, my mother called. She had been watching the news about the missing billionaire and was worried because the police were searching farms and properties in our area. She wanted to know if I thought Emma was safe, if there was any danger. I lied to her and said everything was fine, that the police would find the missing woman soon, and there was nothing to worry about. After I hung up, Linda told me I was a terrible liar. I replied that it was a good thing I wasn't the one who was supposed to be kidnapped. As evening approached, I saw car headlights coming up the long driveway to my farm. My heart started racing. Linda looked out the window and identified them as police cars. 2 of them. She told me we needed to stick to our story. We were married. She was here by choice, and I had no idea she was considered missing because she had told me she just needed a break from work. When I opened the door, 2 sheriff's deputies were standing on my porch. They asked if I was James Palmer, and when I confirmed it, they said they were investigating Linda Graham's disappearance. They wanted to know if I had seen or heard anything unusual in the past few days. Before I could answer, Linda appeared next to me. She greeted the officers calmly and introduced herself as Linda Graham. She told them she wasn't aware that she was missing. The deputies looked shocked and confused. Linda explained to them that she had left her car abandoned on the highway because she was being followed by someone and it had frightened her. She had called me, her husband, and I had picked her up. She had been staying at the farm ever since. She apologized for causing concern, but insisted she wasn't missing. She was exactly where she wanted to be. The deputies asked me to confirm that I was her husband. I said yes, and offered to show them our marriage certificate if they needed proof. One deputy radioed in the information, while the other asked Linda more questions. They wanted to know why she hadn't contacted her company or family, why she had let people think she was kidnapped. Linda answered smoothly. She said she had been scared of someone at her workplace. She needed time away to think and feel safe. She had come to stay with her new husband because she trusted him and wanted privacy. She had turned off her phone because she wanted peace and quiet. She was genuinely sorry that people had been worried, but she was perfectly fine and not being held against her will. The deputies spent about 20 minutes asking questions and checking our story. Finally, they seemed satisfied. They radioed in that Linda Graham had been found safe and was staying voluntarily with her husband. Before they left, they told Linda she should contact her company as soon as possible to let them know she was okay. After the police cars disappeared down the driveway, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I told Linda that it had been too close, too dangerous, but she disagreed. She said it had been perfect. Now everyone knew where she was and that she had come here willingly. Silas Thorne couldn't make any moves against her without it looking extremely suspicious. I asked what would happen if Silas came to the farm himself. Linda said if he did, we would face him together. But she didn't think he would come, at least not right away. He would want to wait and see what her next move was before making his own. That night, Linda and I sat at my kitchen table and really talked for the first time. She told me about her life before all this trouble started. She had built Graham Industries from nothing, starting with just an idea and a small loan. She had fought every single day to be taken seriously in a business world that didn't want women in positions of power. She had sacrificed relationships, personal time, and normalcy to build her company into what it was today. She told me about Silas Thorne specifically. When she first hired him years ago, he had seemed charming and competent. She had trusted him and given him more responsibility over time. But eventually she started noticing small problems. Money was moving in directions that didn't make sense. Contracts were being signed that benefited Silas more than the company. Employees who asked questions about these issues would suddenly be fired. She realized too late that Silas had been positioning himself to take over. Linda said her biggest mistake was wanting to believe she could trust him. She had ignored her instincts because she didn't want to think someone she had worked with for years would betray her. That hesitation had almost cost her life. I told Linda about my own life in return. I explained about Emma's mother, my ex-wife, who had left when Emma was only 2 years old. She had struggled with addiction and instability, and one day she just packed her things and drove away. I had raised Emma alone ever since, doing my best to give her a stable home and a good life. I told Linda about the farm and how it had been in my family for 2 generations. My father had left it to me when he died, and I had been trying to keep it running despite mounting debts and falling prices for livestock. There were nights when I couldn't sleep because I was worried about whether I could pay the bills or keep food on the table. I was always afraid I wasn't doing enough for Emma, that I was failing her as a father. Linda listened carefully and then told me that Emma was lucky to have me. She said I was doing more than enough, that raising a child alone while trying to keep a failing business afloat took incredible strength. I appreciate her saying that, though I told her I wasn't sure how good a father I could be if I ended up in prison for helping her fake a kidnapping. Linda smiled a little and promised we would be okay. She said she would make sure nothing bad happened to me or Emma. I wanted to believe her, but I was still scared about what might happen next. Over the next few days, life at the farm developed a strange routine. Linda stayed inside most of the time, working on her laptop using encrypted internet connections to communicate with people she trusted. She would make phone calls late at night, speaking quietly so I couldn't hear the full conversations. I knew she was building a case against Silas, gathering evidence and testimony. Meanwhile, I went back to my regular farm work. The pigs still needed to be fed, the fences still needed repairs, and all the normal daily tasks had to get done. It felt bizarre to be doing ordinary work, while my house contained a fugitive billionaire who was technically my wife. Sometimes I would come inside and find Linda cooking dinner. Other times she would be sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by papers and documents, her face intense with concentration. We were 2 complete strangers sharing a space, except we were legally married. The whole situation was surreal. The news coverage about Linda's disappearance had mostly died down after the police confirmed she was safe. The story became much less interesting once people learned she had simply gotten married and wanted privacy. Some business news outlets speculated about why a CEO would abandon her company so suddenly, but most people seemed to accept the explanation that she needed a break from stress. One morning about a week after Linda had arrived, I decided to check the fence line at the far edge of my property. Some of the posts were old, and I needed to see if any had rotted through and needed replacement. I walked the perimeter of the farm, checking each section carefully. Near the back corner of the property, I noticed something attached to one of the fence posts. It was a legal notice, printed on official paper and sealed in plastic to protect it from weather. I pulled it down and read it. The notice said that Palmer Farm property had been sold to Graham Industries Holdings, LLC. According to the document, the sale had been finalized 3 months earlier. I read the notice again because the first time couldn't possibly be right. My farm had been sold 3 months ago to Linda's company. That was impossible. Nobody had told me anything about a sale. I felt rage building inside me. I crumpled the paper in my fist and stormed back toward the farmhouse. Linda had lied to me. She had been lying from the very beginning about why she came here. When I got to the house, Linda was at the kitchen table working on her laptop. She looked up as I threw the door open hard enough that it banged against the wall. I threw the crumpled notice onto the table in front of her. I shouted at her, asking what the document meant. She looked at it and her face went pale. She started to say my name, but I interrupted her. I demanded to know if she had bought my farm 3 months ago. Linda stood up with her hands raised in a calming gesture. She said she could explain. I told her to start explaining right now because I was done with her lies. Linda admitted that yes, her company had purchased the farm 3 months before she came here, but she insisted it wasn't her personally who bought it. It was her company as part of a larger real estate acquisition deal. She claimed she didn't even know about the specific purchase until after the paperwork was already processed. I didn't believe her. I told her that was complete nonsense. She had come to my farm specifically, not randomly. She had said she picked me because I was isolated, but that wasn't the whole truth. The real reason she picked me was because she already owned the land I was living on. She knew I was trapped and desperate, and she took advantage of that. Linda's voice shook as she denied that was her intention. She said, yes, her company bought the land, but I needed to know the full story. My ex-wife had sold the farm to pay off her gambling debts. She had accumulated massive debts that I didn't know about, and she had legal rights to sell the property, because her name was still on some of the original ownership documents from when we were married. She sold my family's farm to cover her own mistakes, and Graham Industries had bought it legally. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I asked if it was true that my ex-wife had sold the farm. Linda said she had the legal documents to prove it, and she was sorry because she thought I already knew. I sat down in one of the kitchen chairs because my legs felt weak. Everything I thought I owned, everything I had been working to save, none of it was actually mine. I didn't own the land. I didn't own the farmhouse. I didn't even own the ground under my feet. I was just a tenant who didn't know he was paying rent to a billionaire's corporation. Linda knelt down next to my chair. She told me to listen to her carefully. She promised that if we got through the situation with Silas, if we managed to take him down and she got her company back, she would return the farm to me. She would transfer ownership back into my name, not as a business transaction, but as a gift from a wife to her husband. I looked at her and asked why she would do that. She said it was because she owed me. I had risked everything to help her, my freedom, my reputation, my relationship with my daughter. She didn't take that lightly. She also said she thought maybe we weren't so different from each other. We were both just people trying to protect what we loved most in the world. I wanted to stay angry at her. I wanted to throw her out and tell her I was done with all her lies and manipulation. But when I looked at her face, I could see genuine regret there. I could see that she understood what she had done to me. I finally said okay, but I told her there couldn't be any more secrets. If there was anything else I needed to know, she had to tell me right now. Linda promised there was nothing else. She said she had been completely honest about everything. I wasn't sure if I believed her, but at that point I didn't have much choice. We were both trapped in this situation together now. We had to see it through to the end. Listen, if you're still here, it means you're invested. You want to see what happens next. But here's the reality. Most people watch stories like this and scroll away without subscribing. They enjoy it, then vanish. If this story actually matters to you, if you genuinely care about how it ends, hit that subscribe button. It only takes a second. Otherwise, you'll probably forget this channel exists and miss all the other incredible stories I share. 2 days after I found out about the farm sale, everything came to a head. I was working in the piggery that afternoon when I heard multiple vehicles approaching. The sound was different from normal traffic. These were several cars moving together in a group. I ran outside and saw 3 black SUVs pulling up to the farmhouse. Men in expensive suits got out of the vehicles, and in the center of the group was an older man with silver hair. I recognized him immediately from television. It was Silas Thorne. In person, Silas was more intimidating than he appeared on TV. He was tall and carried himself with the confidence of someone who was used to getting exactly what he wanted. His eyes were cold and calculating as he looked around my farm with obvious disdain. Linda came out of the house when she heard the vehicles. When she saw Silas standing there, her entire body went tense. Her face became hard and emotionless, like she was putting on armor. Silas called out to Linda with false friendliness in his voice. He said he was so glad to see she was safe, that everyone had been worried about her. His tone suggested concern, but his eyes told a different story. Linda responded coldly that she was sure everyone had been very worried. The sarcasm in her voice was obvious. Silas said they needed to talk about the company and about her situation. He told her that her sudden disappearance and secret marriage had raised concerns among the board of directors. Surely she could understand that her behavior looked questionable. Linda asked what concerns he was talking about specifically. Silas answered smoothly that the board had concerns about her judgment and her ability to lead the company. She had vanished without any notice, married a man that none of them had ever met or heard of, and she had been hiding out at a farm while the company struggled without proper leadership. The board was now considering whether she was mentally fit to continue as CEO. I could see Linda's jaw tighten with anger. This was exactly what she had been waiting for. Silas was making his move to have her declared incompetent, so he could take control of the company. Linda asked if Silas had anything to do with these concerns the board supposedly had. Silas said he was just looking out for the company's best interests, which was why he had brought the men with him. He gestured to people who had come in the SUVs and explained they were there to escort Linda back to the city, where they could sort everything out properly. Linda stated firmly that she wasn't going anywhere with them. Silas's friendly mask slipped for just a moment, and I could see anger flash across his face. He told Linda not to make this difficult. Linda challenged him, asking what he would do. Would he drag her away from her husband's farm by force in front of witnesses? She pointed out that wouldn't look very good for him or the company. That was when I stepped forward and told Silas he needed to leave. I said my wife didn't want to go with him, and this was my property, which meant he was trespassing. Silas looked at me like I was an insect he wanted to crush. He made a sarcastic comment about me being the pig farmer who had somehow convinced a billionaire to marry him overnight. He asked if I thought I was quite a catch. I responded that I was better than a corporate snake who tried to murder his boss. The words came out before I could stop them, but once they were said, I couldn't take them back. The atmosphere changed immediately. Silas went very still and silent. He asked me to repeat what I had just said. Linda stepped next to me and stated clearly that I had accused him of trying to kill her. She said we both knew it was true. The only question was whether she could prove it. Silas's face showed no emotion, but I could see him thinking rapidly. He was trying to figure out what evidence Linda might have, what she might know about his activities. He told her she was delusional and couldn't prove anything. Linda said maybe she was delusional, or maybe she had dashcam footage from her car, showing his men forcing her off the road. Maybe she had financial records proving he had been embezzling from Graham Industries for years. Maybe she had testimony from 3 different employees that he had paid to keep quiet about his illegal activities. Silas's face lost color. He said she was bluffing and didn't have any of that. Linda pulled out her phone and told him she wasn't bluffing at all. She said she had already sent everything to the board of directors and to the police. They were probably at his office searching through his files right now. She told Silas he had 2 choices. He could try to forcibly take her away from the farm, or he could get in his car and try to run before the police caught up with him. It was his decision. For a long moment, Silas just stared at her in silence. Then he looked at the men who had come with him and gave them a small nod. They started backing toward the SUVs. Silas told Linda this wasn't over, but Linda replied that yes, it was over. He was finished. The 3 SUVs pulled away, leaving clouds of dust behind them. Linda and I stood there watching until they completely disappeared down the road. After they were gone, I asked Linda if what she said was true. Did she really have all that evidence against Silas? Linda said yes, it was all true. She had spent the past week gathering everything she needed to destroy him. Every document, every piece of testimony, every financial record that proved his crimes. I asked why she hadn't used the evidence sooner if she had it. Linda explained that she needed Silas to make the first move. She needed him to reveal his true intentions publicly so that everyone could see what kind of person he really was. Now there was no way for him to claim innocence or spin the situation in his favor. He was done. The week after Silas's visit to the farm was chaotic in ways I had never experienced. Silas Thorne was arrested within 24 hours of leaving my property. The evidence Linda had gathered was overwhelming. Dashcam footage showing his hired men running her car off the road, financial documents proving years of embezzlement from Graham Industries, and testimony from multiple employees who had witnessed his illegal activities. The news covered the story constantly. Every channel showed footage of Silas being led away in handcuffs, looking furious and defeated. Reporters dug into his background and discovered more crimes he had committed over the years. The board of directors held an emergency meeting and voted unanimously to remove him from the company permanently and keep Linda as CEO. They also agreed to cooperate fully with law enforcement in prosecuting Silas. Through all of this, Linda stayed at the farm. She could have gone back to the city immediately, but she didn't. She handled conference calls and video meetings from my kitchen table. She signed documents and made executive decisions while sitting in a farmhouse that smelled like pig feed. She was rebuilding her company from a distance, all while living in the middle of nowhere with a pig farmer she had married out of desperation. The board also voted to investigate all business transactions that had been made during Linda's absence, including the sale of properties. When they discovered that my farm had been purchased using questionable methods, They agreed to reverse the sale. Linda used her authority as CEO to transfer the property deed back into my name. The farm legally belonged to me again, free and clear of any debt. When Linda showed me the paperwork, making me the owner again, I didn't know what to say. I thanked her, but the words felt inadequate for what she had done. She told me I had earned it by risking everything to help her. Without my help, she might not have survived Silas's plot. As the days passed, something strange happened between Linda and me. We started talking more, not just about business or the situation with Silas, but about real things. We shared meals together and told stories about our lives. Sometimes we would laugh at stupid jokes or silly observations about the differences between farm life and city life. We weren't strangers anymore. We had become something else, though I couldn't quite name what that something was. Emma came back home after staying with my mother for nearly 2 weeks. I had been nervous about how she would react to Linda, this stranger who was suddenly living in our house and was technically her stepmother. But Emma liked Linda immediately. Linda was patient with her, played games with her, and listened to her talk about school and friends. Watching them together made something warm spread through my chest. One evening after Emma had gone to bed, Linda and I sat on the porch watching the sunset. The sky was turning orange and pink, and the farm was quiet except for the occasional sound from the piggery. It was peaceful in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Linda told me she had finalized all the paperwork that day. The farm was officially mine again, legally and permanently. Nobody could ever take it from me. I thanked her again, and she said I had earned it. Then I asked her what happened next. Would she go back to the city permanently? Would we get the marriage annulled and go back to being strangers? I tried to keep my voice casual, but I realized I was nervous about her answer. Linda was quiet for a moment. Then she asked if that was what I wanted. I thought about the past few weeks. I thought about how strange and terrifying and somehow right everything had felt. I thought about how Linda fit into the farmhouse now, how she belonged here in a way I couldn't quite explain. I told her honestly that no, I didn't want to end things and go back to how life was before. Linda smiled at me, and there was genuine warmth in her expression. She said that was good because she had been thinking maybe she could split her time between the city and the farm. She needed to be present at Graham Industries headquarters for some things, but there was no reason she couldn't work remotely part of the time. If I was okay with that arrangement, she would like to stay married and spend time here regularly. I asked if she really wanted to stay married to a pig farmer. Linda laughed and said she wanted to stay married to me specifically, not just any pig farmer. She told me that showing up at my gate in that red dress had turned out to be the best decision she had ever made, even though it had seemed crazy at the time. I agreed that it had definitely been the craziest day of my life. But looking back, I would make the same choice again. Linda reached over and took my hand. We sat there together as the sun went down completely. Two people who had started as desperate strangers making a dangerous bargain and had somehow ended up finding something neither of us expected. The farm was mine again. Linda was safe from Silas and back in control of her company. Emma had a secure future and a home she would never lose. Sometimes the craziest, most desperate decisions turn out to be the best ones we ever make. Linda moved her things into my bedroom the next week. We stopped pretending the marriage was just a legal arrangement and started building something real. She taught Emma about technology and business. I taught her about farming and the simple pleasures of rural life. We created a family out of circumstances that should have destroyed us. The story of the billionaire CEO and the pig farmer became something people talked about for a while. News outlets called it unusual and romantic. Business magazines wrote articles analyzing Linda's decision to split her time between the corporate world and farm life. But eventually the attention died down, and we were left alone to live our lives. Some mornings I still woke up and couldn't quite believe everything that had happened. I would see Linda sleeping next to me or find her in the kitchen making breakfast for Emma, and it would hit me all over again how much my life had changed because of one woman in a red dress asking an impossible question. Linda kept her promise about everything. The farm stayed in my name. She made sure Emma's future was secure with trust funds and education savings. She used her position and wealth to help other small farmers in the area who were struggling like I had been. And most importantly, she stayed. She didn't run back to her old life and forget about the pig farmer who had helped her when she was desperate. We built something real together. Something that started as a lie became the most honest thing either of us had ever done. The red dress alibi became a red dress love story, and neither of us would have changed a single moment of how it all happened. Sometimes the most desperate decisions reveal what we're truly capable of. James and Linda's story teaches us that taking calculated risks, even ones that seem crazy, can lead to unexpected transformation. When you're drowning in circumstances beyond your control, sometimes accepting help from an unlikely source isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Their journey shows that genuine partnerships can emerge from transactional beginnings when both people choose honesty and commitment over convenience. Trust, once earned through shared struggle, becomes a foundation for something far stronger than what comfort alone could build. So here's the real question. Did you subscribe yet? Thousands of people will listen to this story and won't subscribe. Please don't be that person. Kindly support what I do here by subscribing. And then drop in the comment section if you like part 2 of James and Linda's story. What challenges will they face as Linda splits her time between two worlds? How will Emma adjust to having a billionaire stepmother? Will Silas find a way to strike back from prison? Let me know if you want to hear more.